Alright, well everybody, welcome back after holidays. One thing we're going to focus on this term is slang, and Aussie slang in particular. I guess something about slang first of all. So there's a section on the Moodle to do with slang, and it's linked with culture as well. I put it all kind of together. We can look at some of the resources here. And obviously you're not going to learn all the slang in the next term. It's going to be an ongoing thing. So I've got some resources here that can help you into the future. I guess, one thing about English is it's not just spoken in one country, obviously, is it? It's obviously origin is England. We got the US, Canada, Australia, South Africa, New Zealand, etc. And each one of those places has different slang. And so there's what you might call universal slang, which goes across US, England, Australia, etc. And then there's particular slang just to the US, just to England, just to here. So that's something you've got to be thinking about when you do realise something's slang. Is it a bit of slang? Notice I can't say a slang because slang is uncountable. That's important. You can't have slangs and you can't have a slang. So a bit of slang. Is it a bit of slang that is only used in Australia, or is it US or British? So that's something to kind of figure out, and you can look that sort of thing out, and I'll show you where you can find some of those things out. It will just help you figure out how to use it. Obviously, political power and economics is closely connected with language. One example here is with slang. We know most of United States slang, for example. They don't know ours. Right? Just like we know US culture very well, they don't know much about Australian culture. I mean, they know the basics, but the particularities of Australian culture is different from the US. Well, same with England. We know English slang. They don't know some Australian slang. So that's why Australian slang takes a bit of work. If you look in general slang, English slang books, you may not find the Australian slang. So what's your best resource for Australian slang? It's the first one there, which I have talked about, and it's not online. It's a hard copy resource. And I've just got the link to Amazon. I mean, you can buy it wherever. About $20. You can sometimes pick copies of this up in the Oxfam bookshop. It's quite often there, actually. I'd say probably every 3 or 4 times I go in, there's a copy sitting around for a couple of dollars. Just be careful with it, because there is another book called the Dinkum Dictionary, and it's about the origin of Australian words, not actual slang dictionary. So you've got to get the one that's by this guy, Lenny Johansson. He's the author. You might find it, there's an older form of it. It was called the Penguin Book of Australian Slang. Penguin, with a publisher. There it is there, look. That one. The Penguin Book of Australian Slang. Gee, he's keen to get to class. Must be a very exciting class. Look, that's what the old copy looks like, and it's almost exactly the same. So if you see that one, that one there, then it's got a great picture there. Australian Lifesaver. That's the same thing. So either one of those will do. There are other books on Australian slang, but I just find that one is particularly comprehensive. So it covers a very broad range. It doesn't have too much old-fashioned stuff in it either. Some slang, like, you look in some dictionaries and they say words like cobber, hi cobber, which means like mate. But absolutely, no one uses that word anymore. You know, there are some dictionaries that put old words in, and really they're kind of irrelevant now. So that is one of the problems with slang dictionaries. So yeah, have a look at that one. I'm just going to see if I can set up the display software. Okay, one that is online, and it's a good one. It's a shorter one, much shorter, about 300 or so words. The Koala Slang Dictionary. It's just on the, I call it the Koala one because it's got this koalanet.com, and I don't know, it's sort of about Australian culture generally. But what I'll do, I haven't printed it off, but I've got this, I've just cut and pasted this into a Word document a while back. And I've got it, I can print it off and I'll get it for you hard copy, and we'll do a little bit of work on it. It's a good one because you can see there, it's not too long. But I'll just adjust this because I'll write on the board. Remember our famous curve, you know, the Pareto curve, the logarithmic decay curve of language. So we can say, look, that's the case for English vocabulary generally, or we could take a subset of a particular kind of vocabulary, like just slang, English slang, or Australian slang, whatever, and we'd find the same curve. There would be one word here that would be absolutely top and would be much higher than the others, and you get a very rapid decay. Probably, my guess, the great Australian adjective, yeah? Probably bloody. Now that's an interesting case, this word, bloody. They do call it the great Australian adjective. Because, you know, it's bloody hot, mate. That's a bloody fantastic footy game, you know? He's a bloody good mate. It just means very, doesn't it? But you go to America and you say, that was a bloody good film, and they'd say, oh, what, was there a lot of shooting and blood on the floor? So for them, they don't have the same meaning. Go to England, they'll understand it. Right? So this is what I mean, like, when you figure out slang, you've got to figure out how and where it's being used. But yeah, you're going to find a kind of rapid decay. So obviously these words are worth learning, but they're going to be less frequent, aren't they? So your task is to... This Koala dictionary has got about, I don't know, 300 words. And one of the reasons I put it up on the Moodle is I think it pretty well represents this first 300 or so, with a few exceptions. You know. There are some in there that I haven't heard and that are particular to maybe Victoria or New South Wales or something, but most fall in here. So my point is, this is a bloody good place to start learning slang. If you got those 200 or 300 words under control, I think you'd cover most of this territory, which is obviously a good, you know, that's what you want to get first, isn't it? And then, sure, over the next few months and years, you keep working on that stuff. If you got the slang dictionary, the thing I showed you first, with all kind of 5,000 entries or however many, you kind of don't have any sense of which ones are the most frequent. So that's why I think this is kind of useful, and I'll print it off for you in the next couple of days. If you have a look at it, if you have a look at, one of the nice things about slang in any language, a lot of it's metaphorical and a lot of it's funny. And so, we've talked about this before, like stuff that is got a clear metaphor, what we call a transparent metaphor. As soon as you see it, you think, oh yeah, I understand why that's said, and it's funny. that's going to stick in your memory relatively easily, isn't it? I'd say 30–40% of this. When you read it, you think, yeah, okay, I can see the joke in that, and it sort of sticks. You may not be ready to actively use it straight away, but you see the logic, the metaphorical logic of it. Let's just go at random somewhere in the middle. Look at K. Let's take K. It's a little short one. He's got a kangaroo loose in the top paddock. A paddock, first of all, a paddock is a field. On a farm might be divided into 12 paddocks. The top paddock, the one up on the hill. So where is the top paddock in the body? Head. Okay, so in the head there's a kangaroo loose, jumping around, all right? Thoughts that can't be controlled. So if someone's intellectually inadequate, they're not, they can't focus. They're not all, as we say, they're not all there. Then we say he's got a kangaroo loose in the top paddock. See the metaphor? And there's this kind of bit of humour there. It's fairly easy to remember that, isn't it? When you hear it again, you're going to get it. So they're almost like, lots of them are like little jokes that you kind of get. And once you've got it, it kind of sticks. Kelpie, yeah, there's no metaphor there. It's the Australian sheepdog that comes from that kind of sheepdog. Kero, well, there's that pattern we've talked about. Kerosene. Take the first syllable or two syllables and put an O on the end or an E. Very common pattern in Australian slang, isn't it? Mozzie, Prezi, Cozzie, Jono, Robbo, for names. You see this O. Kindi, there we see it again, but with the E. Kindi. You probably know that one. Knock. You know this one? Don't knock. She really tried with a piece of writing. Don't knock it. Don't criticise. Now knock, hit, isn't it? So clearly there's a logical metaphor there. If you knock something, you criticise. A little bit different from the, let's jump one. Knock her, somebody who criticises. That's logical. Knock back, a little bit different. Phrasal verb, you see, because you've got your little particle there. Refuse, you knock back something. So you can see quite a few of those, just as a sample, have got a metaphorical element and they're humorous as well. So what I would do with something like this, once I've printed it off for you, just sit over a coffee, read it and have a bit of a laugh, You might need to look a few things up, like paddock, for that, to get the metaphor. But just work through them. Now, not everyone is going to be humorous, but a lot are. And a lot of them you'll see the metaphor. And, I think straight away, probably, if you just work through it fairly in a relaxed kind of way, you'll probably get, half of those fairly quickly. Now, obviously, how do you then... we've talked about with like Radio National listening a lot, so you hear new words over and they come back to you, Where would you go to, say you do this over the next 2 or 3 weeks, read through them, and not just once, 2 or 3 times. Okay, so you've got these all kind of in your head. They're decaying away, aren't they, with memory? Memory always decays. How are you going to keep them alive? What would you do? You've got to hear them or read them, don't you? So where are your main sources that you can refresh yourself by seeing it or hearing it again? Where are your best sources of slang?
Some sort of news?
News. Maybe in the interview, but a news is a relatively formal thing.
Neighbours?
Yeah, exactly. Neighbours, series. Yeah, get an Australian series. Neighbours is the classic, isn't it? Yeah. fictional series are good because they're ongoing and you can... What are the series? Because I never watched them. What have we got? We got Neighbours. Do you know Neighbours? Very famous Australian sort of gossip, you know, series. All about people cheating on each other and, you know, best friends who break up and all that kind of stuff. What are other Australian series? Home and Away. I never watch these things, but, you know, these are your really, really well-known Aussie series where you hear this kind of stuff all the time. You've got lots of films, of course, haven't you? And I do have a list in the Moodle, we'll see it a bit later, top 100 Australian films by like surveys and so on. So they're worth working your way through, they're kind of fun. If you want to turn on the subtitles, you know, it might help to hear what's being said, and also, you know, you actually see one of these things written down. It helps. Yeah, I'd say even, okay, remember we have looked at this one? Remember that? Last term? That's a very good source, the ABC Australian Story. And that's especially good because you've got a transcript. You can have a good listen to it, think, oh yeah, that's a bit of slang, then go and have a look at it captured in writing. It's one, you know, slang by definition is the part of a language where we just speak it and we don't write it down very often. So it's quite hard to find it frozen where we can study it. Australian Story is great like that because you've got a transcript. Other areas, tomorrow's classroom, E321, the Magic Library, remember all the play scripts. So Australian play scripts. Also, Australian, there are quite a lot of these actually. What's the difference between a play script and a screenplay? Play script for the live theatre. You've got a stage, the people are actually there performing to the audience. Screenplay, a film, and the script for a film. These are increasingly available on the internet. You can get a lot of American. You know, think of famous movies. You can get the screenplays. Just type your title of your film and the word screenplay. There's a pretty good chance you'll get a script. And of course, there's lots of slang in screenplays, isn't there? Now, obviously, if you do that, you're going to get American slang, but a lot of that, as I've said, is used here. So, you know, that's a kind of fun way. I mean, slang is kind of one of the more fun ways of learning language because you can sit and watch a nice film and just watch it the first time for the story, say, and then go back and work on the language of it. Work through, turn the subtitles on, work through, freeze it, look it up. So that can be an ongoing kind of process. But yeah, you can get Australian films, much smaller group, but you get a lot of American especially films there. The other area, comics. Now, in the library, there has been a very, very good section of comics. There's all the Japanese, are they manga? Yeah. And Batman and, you know, Spider-Man comics and all that. And they're obviously not Aussie slang, but I might have told you before, I've gone in there, opened up some pages just at random and counted the slang in it. And usually a double page, there are 3 or 4 or 5 bits of slang per double page. You know, there's a lot there. Now, I was just in the library in the holidays and that little comic stand is no longer there. They must be somewhere in the library still, but so you just might need to ask the librarian. But again, that's a kind of relaxing way of of learning language, isn't it? Just sit with your Batman, you know, and read through what Batman says to Robin and pick up the slang. I mean, comics can be a serious source of language. I remember I read, you know, thousands of comics probably between the age of 8 and 10, and I can remember a lot of serious vocabulary I picked up from comics. So it helped me with my reading generally. So I would say, though, another thing I will show you, and more generally, comedy, of course, is a huge source of slang, isn't it? Pretty much anybody in any language being funny up on stage or in film, they use slang. And that gets really complex and hard. It can. I think comedy, more than academic writing, is probably your hardest form of language, ultimately. And that's an interesting project and challenge in itself. But I'll show. This is a famous Australian. This is very much Australian. So you get a lot of good Australian slang. We'll actually spend some time looking at a little slice of a Kath and Kim show. Kath and Kim are mother and daughter living in the suburbs, and yeah, lots of comic situations, and every minute there'd be 2 or 3 bits of slang in it, and strong Aussie accents as well. And there are many. There are several series with programs in each series, and some of them are online. I've got a link to one just to start you off, and then you can Google the rest. So, as a package, there's quite a lot of raw material there that you can work your way through.
Can you find it in YouTube?
Yeah. There's quite a lot of Kath and Kim on YouTube, or on what's that other one? I think it's Vimeo. If you know that. Yeah, the video site.
How do we spell that? Vimeo?
I'm not sure if it's on Vimeo or not, but it's spelled like that. It's just, I find a lot of, you probably found it too, a lot of videos and films on that website. Anyway, let's have a look. If everyone's logged in now, I'll just refresh your... Okay, 3, 2, 1. I'll just see if the display is working. Is that working? Yeah.
Yes.
Good. Alright, so we've looked at that as the best book to use. Hard copy, you should all get yourself a copy of that for about $20. That really, you know, as I've said, by the end of the course, you should have your little ESL library in the corner of your study. Probably about a dozen books on there. We've looked at a few already, the Activated, the Dinkum Dictionary, and so on. This would be another one that's absolutely essential, core textbook, if you like, for the rest of your English development. You will need that book. I'll get you a hard copy of that in the next couple of days. I've just put up a couple of other links to Australian slang. Aussie Vault. There are a lot around. This one, yeah, has just got, this is quite nice because you've got, like, do you know this one? Arvo. Very, very, very common. I use it all the time. I'll see you tomorrow, Arvo, in the afternoon. Are you guys coming around to watch the footy on Saturday? Arvo. Again, the same pattern, isn't it? Take the word, shorten it, make it a voice, not arf, but arv, and put an O on the end. So it's following that same pattern. So you've got your sections of A, B, C, D, etc. Yeah. And you'll find that list is a little bit different from the Koala list. It's just worth working your way through a number of those. Now the next one, say you do get a CD, a DVD, and you're watching a film, either Australian or American or British, and you like that idea of, you know, learning slang that way. So you hear a word and you think, oh, what's that? You know, you go back, maybe you've got the subtitles on, you see the word, but you look it up in the Dinkum Dictionary, not there. Your best source of global English slang is this, Urban Dictionary. Has anybody come across Urban Dictionary before? Yeah, it's a little bit like a wiki, like Wikipedia, a wiki, you know, where everybody contributes. There's no one person or team writing this. It's people all around the world writing. So here are a few examples. So we could put in here, let's put Arvo in. See what comes up. One thing about Urban Dictionary is you get a lot of people writing and there's no censorship. So obviously slang can get sexual and racist, and some of it is quite offensive, really is. I mean, especially the racist stuff gets, you know, I don't know, they don't seem to have any editorial policy where they remove offensive stuff, so be ready for that. That's all I'd say. Arvo. Now, what you see here, they will usually tell you where it comes from. If it's general slang and used everywhere, they won't say anything, but clearly we're getting a clue. It's Australian here, and it tells us there, and a couple of examples. And then they usually have related words, and then we can see a few other Australian bits of slang coming up. Usually there's more than one person. This person's Gina, she's offered one version. This guy's offered another. You often get several entries. Yeah. And there's something very different, you know, a bit of offensive language here, a bit of racism about Russians, So, you know, that's typical. But you will find it usually has the word you're looking for. And it's often good to read a few different entries because they'll give you different angles on the word. But Urban Dictionary is a pretty good resource. It's growing every day. People are adding hundreds of words, actually about 200 words a day get added into this thing. Yeah. Okay, just jumping down, we've got some other, here's some US slang. And most of that, as I said, is understood and often used here. And they've just got it in alphabetical order. If we take at random, mellow, yeah, you need to mellow out. Like, do you know the term chill out? More common. Mellow is like relax. Yeah. So this is not bad because you can try to have a guess. There's been a meltdown in the relationship between my parents and me. What do you reckon? What's happened? Breaking down, isn't it? Why a meltdown? Where does that come from? True, ice melts, but we don't... Meltdown, very specific. Tommy's going to be the expert here.
Nuclear power plant?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Fukushima, you know. If a reactor gets really badly damaged and the material heats up and becomes melted and then it melts down into the earth, that's a meltdown. So here, a meltdown, not just a small problem, is it? It's really big, catastrophic, total collapse, yeah. So again, metaphor, isn't it? Metaphorical. That's a good one. The homework the teacher gave us was Mickey Mouse. Often used about education and courses. He did a Mickey Mouse course in hospitality.
Fun?
Not a bad guess. Have another guess. Mickey Mouse.
It's not very word.
Yes, right. Nonsense and a waste of time. It's sort of like, if you think of Disneyland, you know, think of all the traditional stories that Disney takes. They're often quite rich story and complex stories, and they take them and make them very simple and a bit stupid. You know, that's often an American